So how are any of you guys fundraising right now? Good, it's a good fit then. Cool, so my name is Reshma Sohoni. I run Seedcamp. We are a accelerator and seed fund, so we're essentially an acceleration fund based in London. I've raised 40 million in capital for the fund over the last sort of several years, so I think I know a thing or two about fundraising. I've had a 50% yes rate, so literally out of every 2 people I talk to, one says no, one says yes. That's pretty good too. That's pretty high, high closure to success. So, and a bunch of our companies have obviously raised a ton of money, so hopefully I can give you some good tips. So let me go into, that's my Twitter handle. Please follow me. You can always write to me on there. That's the best way to reach me as well. So who are we? We are accelerating startups from prototype to IPO, or 0 to billion, however you want to think of it. We're all about backing highly ambitious global founders. So as Seedcamp, we don't tend to back anybody sort of, thinking about Europe or Asia or US or whatnot. It's really about thinking about it as targeting global markets. And yeah, it's about, the ambition about building multi-billion-dollar businesses. So we don't do anything around social impact and things like that, which are fantastic to do, but it's not our modus operandi. Our track record, so over 90% of our companies successfully raise a round after Seedcamp. We help a ton with that. And so, they've raised more than 300 million in funding for those 160 or so companies from pretty much every best known investor out there, angel or VC. So I think I've seen it all in terms of stories about fundraising. And we love universities, so we absolutely back a bunch of great MBA students, undergrads, engineers, so on and so forth. We have at least someone from one of these prestigious universities, but all and then some as well. So I went to INSEAD for my MBA, and I went to UPenn for undergrad, where I did engineering and Wharton. So I'm American, but been living here for more than a decade. So the heart of the talk. I wanted to focus it a lot on sort of philosophy around fundraising, because I think if you're not bought into the philosophy around how do you fundraise, I think you set yourself up for a very hard, long road, and probably not ideally successful road as well. So I wanted to focus on that. We can go into any kinds of questions you guys have. Happy to be quite open and talk about anything you guys want. So feel free to interrupt me throughout or at the end. Obviously, we have a bunch of time. So fundraising. It's absolutely like dating, and it absolutely ends in marriage if you're successful with it. So everything you think of with fundraising boils to that one simple point. It's like dating. It's got you've got multiple dates. You've got blind dates, introductions, friends of friends, all of that, right? It's got the good and the bad. It's got those awkward moments. It's got the people you gel with and you have chemistry with, and people you don't. And then, one out of, and the one investor out of the many, and you look into each other's eyes and fall in love, and there's that term sheet. Hopefully a few more of those people fall in love with you, and you get 3 or 4 term sheets, which is what you really, really, really want. And then you pick one, and you have a marriage, and you pick a few probably if you're in the early stages, because you end up doing a round with multiple investors, maybe 1 or 2 VCs, 1 or 2 angels, Seedcamp, for example, as well. So. People really underestimate the power of storytelling, and I think a lot of you guys, when you go into, whether you're pitching at an Oxford event, or you're pitching in front of LBS angels or HBS angels or whatever angel groups or VCs or whatnot, I think you tend to underestimate how powerful telling a great and amazing story is. So. It's not about pitch training. Yes, it's about tone and excitement and volume control and all of those things which a great TV presenter can help you with, but it's not the superficial. It's really the depth of where your story begins, how it follows through on logic, and where you end up with your story. So, it is about getting everyone excited, or exited. Apparently, I misspelled that. It's about having confidence, having the gravitas. Confidence is probably like the really fundamental thing. But your story, sort of beginning to end, whether it's a 30-second story, a minute story, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour story, or 3-hour story, has to really make sense, beginning to end. And whether it's 30 seconds or whether it's 2 hours, it has to be really compelling, and it has to sort of follow the logic you would in a what do you need to put in a 30 seconds, what do you put in a minute, and what do you put in a 2-hour presentation, right? So everything is about storytelling. I have yet to meet a successful sort of fundraise round without a really compelling story. So do not underestimate the power of building your skill in order to tell your story and your company's story. So in fundraising, everything's about momentum. So it's like dating, right? You're starting in a new school, you're meeting loads of people, or you're going out to a wedding or whatnot. You're trying to make an impression, right? It seems to be where a lot of people meet each other for dating purposes, at least. So you need the momentum. You need people to kind of flock around you, to be really interested in what story you're selling. And ultimately, nothing happens in a round without a lead. You need someone to step up. In Europe, that's hard to get. In the early rounds, it's really hard to get a lead investor. Everyone, especially with things like SEIS, EIS, a lot of kind of tax breaks people are getting to put money into fast-growing companies. Everyone sort of says, yeah, count me in for 25, count me in for 50, count me in for 100. And then when you say, great, can we talk terms? Can we get to a term sheet? Everyone says, well, no, I don't have the time to lead. I'm actually just doing a bunch of angel investments here and there. Or, yeah, we're a VC. We lead Series A, but on seed things, we tend to, play nicely with others. So everything, you must get a lead. And if you can't get a lead, it just drags on endlessly. So it's, again, like dating. If you can't get that one person or a couple people to get to, marriage moment, you're gonna be single and lonely for the rest of your life. So that's, so you must get a lead. So to make sure that the momentum happens, you have to run a process. And I can go a little bit into what that process can look like. But if you don't run a process, again, nobody understands what your aims are in life. Are you just dating to hook up, or are you dating with something serious? Do you really want a marriage, or are you going to go head out on a backpacking trip or wherever, right? Are you serious? Is there a process? So don't let it drag on, and go in there with a ton of confidence to run that process. The more you own your fundraising, the more you're not looking for guidance, and the more you own your life within fundraising, the more successful you will be. I hope you enjoy my really terrible pictures. I had much better slides yesterday, but but there's the points are bigger here than the pictures, so I don't have a. So the other thing about successful people, people who are successful in raising capital and those who are not, and you'll look at sort of ideas and you go, I don't understand how that company like Secret raised 35 million and shut down 16 months later, right? Or I don't understand this company who is deep within medtech can't seem to raise even 500K, right? So a lot of that sort of doesn't necessarily make sense to the casual observer, but there's probably a lot of depth within it. And in terms of whether you're going to be successful or not, often will boil down to, have you really answered the hard questions? So along with how you tell a story, along with how you build momentum, look in the mirror, and what are the hardest questions? What will make you fail? You got to really figure out what can go wrong. And then the 800-pound gorilla in the room, whether it's a competitor, whether it's human user behavior, whether it's technology, whether it's government policy, whatever it is, you've got to really address that. So for Airbnb, longest time, well, it's still illegal in some parts, right? So it's literally been an illegal service. But that's the 800-pound gorilla. They addressed that pretty early on. They've talked about it since early on. They've gotten some powerful lobbyists on their team who they pay a lot of money to. So they raise a lot of money to pay a lot of money out to some of the talent they have. But that 800-pound gorilla is there. So for the Ubers and the Airbnbs and so on and so forth. So the better you address the toughest questions for why you will fail, the more respect you will get from investors. And so it's not about pulling the wool over their eyes, because the smartest investors will immediately spot what the hard stuff is for your business. Do your homework. So again, nothing more powerful than when you walk into an investor's room, you know who their portfolio is. You may have talked to some of the portfolio CEOs. You know them on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You've stalked them to the nth degree as much as humanly possible and a decent thing to do, not sort of overstalking, but you know them extremely, extremely well. So do your homework on who they are, what stage are they investing in, are they at the beginning of their fund life or end of their fund life, how many angel investments have they done in the past year if they're angels, so on and so forth. Really understand the kind of the stage where they're at and where their kind of headspace is. Also, in a lot of industries, there's a positive bias and a negative bias. So, figure out where you stand on that spectrum, because you will notice things like, things again, sometimes within travel space or in again, photo sharing and a bunch of things like that. There's just a negative in productivity tools and things. There's just a negative bias. It's like, oh God, yet another. I will be able to work with my colleagues better tool, right? Versus right now, a lot of things that are hot are within fintech, fitness, med tech, property tech. Whether that's right or wrong, not for us to necessarily, for us to judge or at least think about as investors, but not necessarily for you to judge. You just need to figure out where you fall into that. And if it's a negative bias, you have so much, you have that much more hard work to do to turn that around. And if you're in a positive bias industry, you'll see the fruits of that. Your job is just so much easier when you're out there fundraising. So going back to, control your destiny. Fundraising is absolutely all in your hands. You can really control how it pans out for you. So, and if, again, run that process, and you should be the desired asset. I find it in Europe mainly, not so much in the US. In the US, the entrepreneurs sort of walk around going, I am the hot stuff here. You're gonna want me, and there's not enough of me to go around. In Europe, it's people sort of, worship investors. And again, if you change the power balance if you do that to your detriment. So try to have that power, try to have that control over your destiny, and always stay sort of several steps ahead of whoever you're talking to, and map out, how your meetings are going, how the conversations are going, who are they talking to offline, what kind of due diligence are they doing. Know all those steps before you walk into any of these fundraising conversations. The other thing that tends to happen is once you're kind of feeling, oh God, I have to go out raise money, and you start going through that process and you're going out on dates, as happens with dates, it starts to become very transactional. You start to ask, so how many kids do you want? Like first time meeting someone, are you ready to get married? Because I'm really old now, and we have to get married, right? So you can't have it be and it again shows through in those VC angel conversations. It can't be transactional. It's all about relationship building. It is going to be a marriage with those 4 or 5 people you choose to, raise that round with. And so you have to think about it from their shoes. What do they want out of a marriage with you? So it's really not about you. It's really about building those relationships with those people, and it's about finding what makes those investors tick. And once you decide to fundraise, it no longer is your business. You are no longer the boss. You will have bosses, basically. Your customers, your employees, and your shareholders. Often your employees are your shareholders. So, and you yourself have to step up from being I'm the boss, I'm the CEO, to I'm a shareholder of this business. So the minute you start to get on that fundraising path, it's a hugely fundamental shift in how you think about who you are and what you're building. Is a realization that you no longer are master of your own sort of destiny in that sense. You certainly have bosses to answer to, and the more money you raise, the more powerful those bosses and you as a shareholder become. So if that means you need to replace yourself as a CEO, that's something you should be open to and thinking about and challenging yourselves. But so those are kind of 2 points within building relationships, is thinking about it really from an angle of love. And when you talk about it as that, it really becomes not about you, but about other people. I'll talk a little bit about team, because everyone says, well, what's the number one thing you look for when you're, when companies come to you for raising funds, and everyone says team. So I want to go into that a little bit. Happy to ask other questions or answer other questions around team. So especially I think because we're in business school, tend to be MBAs around. As an MBA myself, I have no skills, right? When I graduated, I had no skills to do anything. I still kind of don't have any skills to do anything, and that's most of the MBAs, unless you again, this is for high tech, high growth businesses. So, if you came from a non-technical background, you really have to figure out what your added value to any kind of company is. Because if you look at, and depending on stage of a company you want to join or you want to start. So I constantly get CVs from MBAs who say, hey, I'm graduating in June or May, I want to work in a startup. And I look at it, no coding, no technical, no sort of BD marketing. It's a lot of sort of consulting, banking, general business, strategy. I did strategy at Vodafone for a few years. Strategy means nothing. It's not actionable. So whether you're joining an early team or whether you're starting one up, you have to think about the diversity within your team and that you have complementary skills, that you're really bringing something to the table. So what we look for is 3 Ds within teams. Is because it's technical products. We look for the developer, is who's going to really build it. And the more outsourced development is, and again, I find MBA teams sort of say, hey, we're 3 strategy MBAs, we're going to start this business, and oh, by the way, we've outsourced to Poland or to Belarus or wherever our tech. And that's a big red flag, right? Is you need someone within your team to code and be actually developing the product, because it has to move so fast. These days you ship so fast, and customers are giving you feedback moment to moment, and you need to build that in. You need to iterate your product. So we really look for the developers. Who's the visionary, who's the dreamer, who's architecting it. So I think design and architect really fall together. Is not just I'm an ex so-and-so oil person, and I found this was really tedious and annoying within the oil industry, and I've got this idea for fixing it. Great, but can you really architect what that product's going to look like? Can you really think about the 6-year vision for what that product is going to look like? And so we look a lot towards who the designer is or the visionary is, and then the distributor. So again, for MBAs, if you don't have a lot of tangible skills around marketing, BD, partnerships, etc., maybe bring your more generalist knowledge to being a hardcore salesperson, right? It's all about sales. It's how do you get to market? You've thought of something amazing, you've built it. Now don't disappoint your other co-founders, right? And figure out a way to get it to market. So we look at, those are the 3 Ds in a nutshell we look at. So often a single founder will have all 3, rare, because that's really hard to do for one person. Sometimes 2 people will have a combination of 3 skills, or 4 people will have a combination of those 3 skills. So, but we, those are the qualities everyone's looking at, basically. As your later stage, Series A, B funding, you start to look at the COO, like who's really doing operations, who's managing the budget, so CFO, et cetera, et cetera. So, but those skills aren't as relevant when you're starting up. You can always hire for that. So you got to figure out what is your superpower. So, and it's a team of superheroes, and it's not a team of individuals. So you really have to gel together. We ask a lot of questions around, did you guys just meet within the MBA program? Did you meet before? How long have you been working together? What difficulties have you gone through together? How do you fight with each other? How do you get along with each other? How do you make decisions? Don't talk in titles. Titles are terrible. What you'll notice is also you'll probably be pretty bad at hiring at the beginning. And so you put inflated titles on each other, or on the first 10 team members. First 5 at least should not have titles. And because you realize you either hire too high, too low, too whatever, and you need to put new people in on top or middle or bottom, and it gets all pretty screwed up. So don't talk in titles, talk in superpowers. Is, I am going to get this shit out the door. I am going to sell this shit. I am going to build this shit. Or I'm going to make sure the money lasts in this business and we don't die because we spent too much on something. So, and then, people bring in reams of experience on paper, which again is just useless. So it's all about what can you deliver. So we really look for early teams that can really deliver on bringing a product to market. So then it gets into all the other stuff. So valuations. Know why you're raising. So just a couple of days ago, one of our companies wrote to us and said, hey, I've been kind of hiding from you the last few months because I really realized I want to build a not-for-profit business. And I was really scared of you guys. And I said, great, great for you, good for you. You know what you want to do. Thanks for telling us. We'll figure it out, right? And so I think you got to really know, why are you raising money? If you don't have look at yourself in the mirror as a team, and make sure all 3, 4, 2 of you are on the same page as to why you all are raising. Because if people have different ideas within the team, it comes across in a pitch, in a VC meeting, when you start to go out to a dinner for due diligence and the investors are starting to get to know you as people, the fact that you guys are not on the same page starts to really come across. So you understand what your ambitions are. And a good way to think about it is, what kind of a revenue business do you want to build, or how many people do you want to ultimately maybe employ, right? Those are a couple of, rather than thinking, I want $1 billion business, that can sort of mean anything. But do you foresee you can build a 50 million revenue business, a 100 million revenue business, or a 10, or a 5, or a 1? And breaking through the 1 million, 1 million easy to build revenue business is very, very difficult. So that's the escape velocity, sort of. Once you're past 1 million revenue and you can grow to 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, that's the revenue curve people want to see, right? And so you got to be honest with, what's your ambition, and you as a whole team. So why are you raising? Are you raising to exit? Are you raising for a quick flip? Are you raising to have a long-term business? How much are you raising? Make sure you understand that for each round. What are you going to do with the funds? Again, I often find entrepreneurs kind of look at fundraising as, I won the lottery, we closed 500K, now what? We have to spend that. And so are you going to use those funds over 12 months, 6 months, 18 months? Valuation versus dilution, those are 2 different things. So you have to think through that. And then the terms, right? It's not just about I raised 10 at 100. What came with it? Liquidation preferences, information rights, board seats, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about sort of valuation as the shortcut, as people tend to think. And like everything else, because I wanted to focus a lot more on philosophy. So yeah, you need a huge market, you need a killer product, you need an amazing business model, and you got to think about competition. So that I just boil that all into those little bullets. So I think, yeah. And then the last, again, it's a marriage. It's really, really long term. We get into companies when it's generally 2 people or 3 people with a product almost sort of ready for market, or in the market maybe already in the early days, and we're in there with them for, if we think about it, towards IPO. So it's a 5 to 10 year relationship, which may be longer than most marriages anyways. So yeah, questions? No. Questions? Yeah.
Maybe it's pretty specific. Like, how does Seedcamp work? How do you apply? When do you take people?
Yeah,
all that stuff?
Great. I'm glad you asked that. I get to talk about myself. So the way we operate is if you've raised no money, or very small amount of money, say 0 to 100K or something, the way we come through, we call that the pre-seed companies, and the way you come through is apply to a seed camp. So the next one, the applications should go up pretty soon. The next one is in September in London, and we'll make decisions in August, and then we'll help the startups build towards we'll have a month together before we put you up in front of 200 of the most amazing sort of business operators and investors. People fly in from all over the world, to come to London those few days. So the next one is London. So that's for pre-seed. We have the in-betweeners. So say you've raised maybe 150, 200K to, 500K, 750K from a bunch of people. And I'm finding it more and more because of SEIS sort of money out there. You're able to raise 200-300K to just kind of get started. But it's people that may have some expertise within whatever your business idea is, but it's not a powerful platform the way we have. And so for that, what we do is when companies say, well, we still want to be a part of Seedcamp, can we be a part of Seedcamp? What we do is we buy a warrant for 3% in the company at your last round valuation. So say you raise 200K at $1 million valuation, or whatever, $1.5 million, we'll buy a 3% warrant at that $1.5 million valuation. So the clock starts there for us to be able to help. So it respects your investors because they came in with proper cash, and although the valuation might have been kind of either silly or not silly, it respects them, but it allows you to be part of our platform. And then for seed rounds, where you're raising anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million, you can't apply to Seedcamp. You only can come through meeting us somewhere or another, or one of our alumni or mentors, or an investor. So what's happening more and more is we have about 40 different investors in our fund. So they're angels, VCs, corporates, etc. So often, say £1 million round is happening, you'll have a lead VC, you'll have the entrepreneur, and they come to us and say, hey, there's a room there for a 100K check or 200K check from Seedcamp. We've got these 1 or 2 VCs, 1 or 2 angels, and we're at 800K. And are you guys in for 100, 200K? So we love those rounds because we know the investor. We then get to know the entrepreneur, and it's an easy round. And we bring in the power of our platform. So that sort of neatly segments the market. So anywhere from pre-seed to seed, we want to be in the kind of the best of the rounds that are happening in Europe. So we're making 40 investments a year. So there's a huge amount of power to you being with 40 other founders or 80 other founders a year, but then we have 160 companies, so that's another 300 founders. So immense amount of learning, immense kind of crossover in terms of industry know-how and challenges and so forth. So we think we're a great fit with a VC and an angel for those seed rounds, and then we're amazing if you don't have anyone else around the table as well. Hope that answers the. Yeah.
I have some questions about the process that founders go through. So,
yeah.
From your perspective, how much time do you invest in evaluating each idea? from sitting down and chatting with people to evaluating the documentation and the specifics of the idea?
Yeah.
And then from a founder perspective, like how much detail do you expect from them? Do you want like a 30-page business plan?
Right.
Or is it like a coffee with a PowerPoint or just a product diagram?
Yeah.
And then the third part would be, how much do you choose based on the founders and trust in their abilities versus how specific their idea is and their plan for the future?
Yeah. So those, and remember those three questions, because if I don't answer any one of them, just holler again. But I mean, that's a really good set of questions, and you should ask that to every investor who you're pitching to, because we differ so much. You know, our model and acceleration fund model is volume-based investing. So we have through 8 years, we are experts, or we're getting pretty damn good at pattern recognition. But that pattern recognition has to match a very fast process. So, for example, for us, for a seed investment, we decide in 24 hours. It's just my partner and we decide in 24. That's why I say it almost has to be served up on a silver platter. Is one of our investors brings it to us, or one of our alumni, or one of our mentors, or says, hey, I know this entrepreneur, he or she's been working on this for 5 years, they're incredibly bright, blah, blah, blah. They already have so-and-so they're talking to as a lead investor. And so because we literally are making, from meeting the entrepreneur for the first time to a decision is about 24 hours, we're relying a lot on our co-investors. So for the pre-seed, then we meet them we get the application in. Those questions we ask those 50 questions we ask are to understand, how do you think? How do you work through these questions? It's not about the right or wrong answer. It's just, how do you think? Does your thinking match our thinking? So I think you have to ask these set of questions to every single investor, and they're going to appreciate that you understand the nuances of how different investors do their jobs. But So on the pre-seed side, so we see the application, we'll do a bit of competitive diligence right at that time. We'll invite startups to come in. We'll spend 2-3 days with them, getting to know them over, we'll do pitch training. We'll chat with them about some of the questions. I mean, we get comments a lot from startups who say, wow, you know my deck from 10 minutes and you came out with two of the critical questions. And that's what you do if you've been doing this for a decade, is you become, you spot, because you don't have time to waste on inane questions. So you spot the ones that are going to be the 800-pound gorilla. So we do through 2-3 days of that. You watch people at dinner, you try to have a pizza or, grab beer and burgers, you see how they interact. I mean, there's a lot of that kind. So, and again, people think, oh, it's all about the paper, it's all about my deck, and it's a lot about that human interaction. So every investor watches for that, watches for your social interactions and how do you treat each other as team members. You'll often have people, the CEO, again, titles, CEO is very derogatory towards their team member, and you'll catch that. You figure out if that's who you want to work with or not. I mean, all those things really, really play a part. So, but if I look at after us, angels just really, and we always get asked for tons of intros. We have a list of 300 angels. And so our startups will be like, great, introduce me to all of them, or, here's 50 of them. And angels, you have to do a ton of homework on, are they a fintech angel? Did everything they do, everything they care about is around banking, or is around education, or around food, or around whatever the industry is. Angels absolutely invest only on expertise and interest and love for the sector, and it's their own money, so they often want to invest what's something they know, unless sometimes they'll invest with a couple of friends. So you really have to know, again, what's your process, how do you decide, do you take the lead, do you tend to follow, what's your criteria, et cetera, et cetera. And then and those angels can really take anywhere from pretty much again, a phone call and a quick meeting, 24 hours like us, or it can take weeks. And it depends if an angel is a novice or an experienced angel. So a couple angels are very young in their angeling career, and so they'll take forever. And you have to figure out whether that person's worth it for you or not. And then the VCs, deep, right? Deep diligence. So it takes weeks, maybe a couple of months, and they will scour, because they study your industry to bottom, everything in between. You think they're not going to talk to your competitors, they are. You think they're not going to talk to other people you may be talking to for fundraising, they are. There's back channels, there's, they will rip your business apart, absolutely, kind of bit by bit. So that's the gradation of it. But in terms of business plan, nobody wants to read. Even VCs don't have that kind of time to read. But it's more about the decks, like power Keynote or PDF decks and so forth. And again, you have your 1-pager, you have your 5-pager, you have your 10-pager, you have your 30-pager. Your 30-pager is kind of like your 30-page business plan, but you just cut out all the crappy words and you're putting the most important things in your 30-page deck. But numbers. VCs only care about numbers. Angels, more the story, more the story, more the industry, and us, more the team. And do we believe you can execute? Do we believe you have those 3D qualities as a team? Other questions? Yeah.
At Seedcamp, what metrics do you set for yourself for monitoring how you're doing with your investments?
Yeah, the ones I put up there in terms of the infographic is, are our companies getting funded next round? But our bar is higher than that, which is, are our companies getting funded by top investors? And we absolutely categorically see a difference between who invests and how successful a company is. Because I think, again, we're not, if you want to have a social impact business, please don't come to us. If you want to have a business that's going to take, the product's going to take 5 years to develop, we're not the place for it. So we know what we cannot invest in. So if you come to us saying, I want to build a 100 million revenue business, because again, I don't like to think of, if you want a quick flip, I mean, yes, we'll back quick flips as well. It's not something we want to do, but it's the nature of how sometimes things happen. But, hey, I want to build a 100 million pound revenue business. I want to one day, be responsible for 5,000 people being employed. I care about that. I want to, build it to be highly profitable, or serving 1 million customers or 10 million customers. Then you're in the right place with us. And those are the network of investors we know who can be investors in you as well. Because then if you tie the right people up together through the journey, then you're all headed in the right direction, and you don't have those kind of horrible conversations of, well, no, I just wanted a lifestyle business where I could take £500,000 of salary out every year. That's great for you, but what about your 20 employees, and what about your 10 shareholders? So yeah. Did I go off tangent maybe on that? No. Okay. So we focus a lot on quality, and we notice it is if you can get the Balderton's indexes, the Andreessen, Sequoias around the table, your growth curve is very different to getting a bunch of no-name angels or no-name VCs around the table, because they just push you so much harder, and we push hard on. So we, in the few months we work together, it's all about driving to that kind of result, and it helps for our model too, because if you're in the hands of tier 1 investors, then we can step off, and we don't need to be on your board, and because we don't take board roles, we only take observer roles, and those are meant to be only until your next round, and then we together determine whether we're still useful to you or not. So on TransferWise, for example, which is our unicorn as such, we were there all the way till Series C. It was felt helpful that we were still around, even when Peter Thiel's money came in and some other money came in. We were still a useful part. But at C, they got Andreessen, they got a couple more of the people more actively involved, and you don't need another voice around that table. I think you're in good shape with Ben Horowitz and a few other people, right? So the more we do that, the easier we can step off and focus on other businesses that need the help. So our real metric is are you in really good hands, and then are you recruiting great people? Talent is the number one differentiator between, again, great companies and the okay companies. So we really push for bringing great talent on board. Did you have a question? Somebody, I thought. Right, yeah.
What does, like, if you get on Seedcamp, what does that experience look like? What do your days look like?
Yeah. So we're much more about you guys as mature founders, and you take from us what you need. It's more of a YC approach to it. Of we're gonna be tough in terms of, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to do month on month? What do you want to do week on week? How are you measuring? So we'll push on that and push on sort of, is progress happening in your business? But we rely on you to let us know, I really need some help on pricing, or we really need to nail we're missing something around product market fit, or we're missing, so we'll work on that. We'll get not only our team, but the whole sort of mentor network. But it's not you must be here for 3 months and you're going to get sort of mentored every day, and because it doesn't work. Like for most businesses so we do a week a month in London, and so it's a lot around different topics. So it's almost like an MBA. So it's 12 weeks spread over 12 months, and so it's intensive for the week, but then you get to iterate and digest what you've worked on for that week and apply it into practice. Because if you just do 3 months, it's after that you're kind of fall off a cliff. So our view is you need kind of honing in those different skills at different times within that 12 months, especially longer term as well. So we have the academy, which is that MBA-ish program. We have office space with us for 3 months. We have a huge number of services where your P&L as a startup is limited to purely what you spend on people. So whether it's customer support, is hosting, all of that sort of, Amazon's sponsors, Zendesk. So a lot of those costs are covered as well. So you can really kind of laser focus on talent and building out your product to market. And then a lot of office hours with our mentors, with VCs who, like every Friday, a few VCs come in and just, hang out, we'll do drinks, et cetera. And they only come to Seedcamp to do it because we have this sort of rolling nature of what we do. And then exposure at Seedcamp London, Seedcamp Berlin, and our US trip. So a third of our companies raise from US investors, and that's where some of the top-notch investors are. So that's why, again, going to that, our view being you need the best of the best around you. So the U.S. trip is critical to what we provide as well. So third of companies raise from third, or actually 40% raise from U.S. money. So it depends. Like sometimes seed, mostly Series A, Series B, etc. So it's a kind of just-in-time program of what each company needs versus a cookie cutter, here's a 3-month rollout of some program and you just got to be there. Because we get, we see startups at prototype, we see them at revenue, we see them at different stages. Yeah.
Do you find a diverse set of startups across the UK because of the 1 week in 4 model? Because obviously it's difficult for startups outside of London to base themselves on a program for 12 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's probably a great, it's a challenge as well, because one thing about being all together for 12 weeks is you have this sort of super pressure of delivering. So we work that in. We sort of keep that pressure on, even if companies aren't coming. So yeah, I mean, diversity-wise, we get people from literally all over. So all the better if you can spend a few months in London, because again, you have to think about every big decision you make. People have families and it's hard to move and all of that, but every decision you make has massive consequences. So we know the steps that'll make life easy for you and allow you to raise that after, say, 75K from us, allow you to raise, we had a company go from Seedcamp Week London to 3 weeks later, £1.5 million round with a top tier VC. 3 weeks, right? So it happens, and there's a lot of steps you can have to make that happen. Or you say, well, I'm in, Berlin or Stockholm or wherever, and I can't come. I can't even come once a month, and all those things just mean your life is just going to be that much harder. So yeah, it's a lot of sacrifices, but they will ultimately make it a lot faster and easier.
Can I follow on that one? to make the sort of steps that you've just described, I'm thinking about going to the US starting September and doing a sort of 12-week program there. So
Yep.
I've looked at 2 programs, Boomtown Boulder and Angel Pad. So is there any others in the US that should be considering that you could recommend?
Probably, but I wouldn't recommend you go to the US. So, so I would say do your own research on that one. Figure out the right market, like wherever your product fit is going to be. Figure out where the right kind of center for you is going to be for that.
My name is Ellen Knable. I study negotiations here at the business school. And one of the things I want to do is understand for the early stage companies, what things would you recommend as we're thinking about training people in negotiation that would be really, really good for us to include?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was at INSEAD, and probably the only 2 classes I actually paid attention in and were useful to me were negotiations and organizational behavior. That literally is your entire business. I mean, everything else you can sort of learn by reading. But those 2 things you can't learn. You can only learn those by doing. And so for negotiations, I mean, I think it's a lot. I imagine you guys have the same approach here. It's a lot of case studies, and what I found powerful was putting yourself in different shoes, like different angles. So, playing the investor role and seeing, oh crap, I have a 100 million fund. This young founder's coming in to ask for a 100K check. I've just wasted 45 minutes on that. Like I don't, I have to write a 30 million check this week or so. So you gotta put yourself. So I think a lot of role playing with, and we tell this to our founders all the time, is don't go in with your hat on. Go in with role play. Get your other founder to play the hardball questions because if you don't face yourself in the mirror, like nothing good's gonna come out for you if you try to hide away from the hard stuff. So I think all the classes where you can really play different roles and it's very case study and it's as close to reality as possible are brilliant to do. And I think I don't know if I'm not clearly I'm not a teacher, but I think also everyone's so busy. If you have, if you're the ability to be in a class, I think you can just go deeper into issues. So it's, valuation and dilution are the same things, but they're very different. You should talk about dilution. I always say to founders, you sound more intelligent talking about dilution than you do talking about valuation. Okay, well, what does that mean, right? So that's a whole other kind of part of a class on it. But I think you can just go deeper into a lot of these early stage negotiations, and they have to do with bringing advisors on board, talent on board, customers on board. You're negotiating with customers in the early days, especially if you're a B2B business, and then obviously investors as well. I don't know if that was helpful, but.
Hi, I don't know if this question has been answered, but are all the companies you taking situated in the UK? In Europe?
So we are backing European talent. So whether that's based in California or New York or Shanghai or wherever doesn't so much matter to us. Obviously, the bar for doing that is much higher. If you're based in California and you're raising money from us, we're gonna wonder why you can't raise there, unless. So we have an instance right now where it's a mentor we've known for a while, and he moved out to the U.S. and as part of his round, because he knows us so well, he's bringing us in, so that's fine, because we know the other people that are in the round as well. But if you're trying to pitch to us from New York or Shanghai as hey, I'm European, by passport or by whatever, the bar is definitely higher as to why you're doing that, right? So, but yeah, we don't. We've definitely broadened the definition of Europe to include Israel as well, and the Eurovision definition of Europe, I guess, and then European talent globally. Then we invested in a Korean company, which has nothing to do with Europe. So go figure. Yeah.
Can you be living and working on this in London for a product focused on foreign markets?
That's a good question. I think for us, that's okay. I think, so we have a company, just happens, like the founders are Croatian, one's an American, but they're selling into MFIs in Africa. And it's challenging. Like I believe in it hugely, and they've got great customer base, but it's been a tough road to get money raised for them. So my answer is short answer is yes, that's fine. But what we'd have to think together is, who do you really go out to fundraise? Because unfortunately, like, we're thinking about our, who's our customers is the VCs, along with you, or the VCs, angels, et cetera. And to our sort of, how do we measure ourselves is, are we getting funding for you guys in the next round? Is it at a very attractive set of terms? Is it from the best people? And Europe and the US tend to have a bias for having ideas that are for those markets. So it's a little bit challenging if your entire market is, like, if you're based here and your market is Latin America, then at least we'll say, go spend a bunch more time in Portugal and Spain, right? Let's meet the VCs and angels there. Or if it's India or whatever, it's more challenging. Super. Thank you.
Wow, all questions answered. Well, thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Reshma. Thank you very much.